We just got one of the biggest lore drops in Silo Season 3, Episode 3, and I don't think enough people realize what it actually means. Between the truth about the mines, the terrifying Grey Goo mission, and Sims' shocking relationship with the AI, Episode 3 may have quietly changed everything. If you're obsessed with Silo theories and deep dives like we are, hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. What was the biggest reveal of the episode for you? Today we're breaking down every major moment, explaining what the Grey Goo mission really revealed, unpacking the old tech bombshell, and talking about what Sims' true motives could mean for the future of the Silo. Let's get into it.
So let's get right into it and talk about the mines, because it was our first look at Lukas Kyle this season.
Yeah, and we always kind of had the understanding we're gonna see him. He's doing something important, and we only see him for like a minute, but we hear a lot about him and what he could possibly be doing from Sims.
Especially because last season, he was the one that was really diving into the lore of the silos, right? Like, he had his own interaction with the AI. He was going through all the books. Like, it just felt like he's obviously doing something bigger. So I'm glad that we got to see him. And it makes sense that he'd be in the mines, because it looks like that is the closest way to a way out that they have.
Yeah, and Camille is talking to the algorithm and saying, with all of the work that he was doing with Bernard, he would be aware of the other silos. And since he was placed in the mines, albeit how short of a time he was actually there, he would know about the strict mining rules on how deep they can dig or how far out they can dig. And she knows he's a very smart guy. He's probably put together, if you dig far enough, you'll find another silo.
Yeah, and I think we also saw in the last season that they're part of a rebellion started in that area. So there's obviously something going on. I just will say, like, one part that was frustrating for us to watch was that it's like they tried to convince us in the episode that he was dead, and it just wasn't landing with us.
Yeah, it definitely seemed out of place, but I am excited to see where the mines lead, because if you're going to hit another silo, we know Silo 17 should be the closest to Silo 18. Is this how we see Solo and the other people that are surviving in Silo 17?
I want to see Lukas Kyle and Solo in a room together, comparing notes, because they're the ones that have had the most time to flip through books and just put it all together. I want to see like what happens when they have a conversation.
And I found it really interesting that Camille really didn't hesitate to poison all of the miners. And again, it makes sense. He spent very little time in the mines. If he is trying to dig out beyond the rules or farther than you're allowed to, he would need to tell people why.
Yeah.
And them so easily putting that poison in there really feels like, A, you're saying they're disposable, but also you're saying that that secret is willing to kill for. So I think we're on the right track on that.
And they're very close to it. For them to take such a big action and see the people as disposable, it's like they're right there. They're in the heat map. And that leads in nicely to all the conversations that Camille has been having with the algorithm.
Yeah, and it seemed as though she's been pretty on board with the algorithm's plan. She's bringing the vitamin D plus up so that it's ready to put into the water. And she doesn't really seem to have any sort of hesitation until she's talking to her husband, Robert.
Yeah, like she's definitely following the plan. She understands the goal. It's guised as this whole let's save the silo and you have to take these steps, which I think anyone that cares about their community can get behind that. But it's not until that conversation with Robert that she kind of like sobers up a little bit, and especially when it comes to the comparison to Juliette.
Yeah, and it as a father, it struck him that she didn't remember her own father who sacrificed his life for, kind of that mini rebellion for her friends, people she cared about. And that struck him because a lot of his motivation this season is coming from his son.
Yeah.
And for Camille, it seems as though it's also coming from her son, but I think she has more information than Robert and potentially knows that they can kill everyone in the silo with by putting poison into the whole silo, because she says, I'd rather him not remember us than we all be dead. And I think it's at the end of the conversation she's having with the algorithm where he says, or it says, do you know why we chose you? And she says, because I was a really good, really good at IT. And he's like, no, because of your ability to lie.
Yeah.
And it makes the last conversation she has with the algorithm where she's like, yes, I know what we have to do. We have to put the vitamin D plus in the water. And, Juliette's a problem. We need to take care of her. And it sounds so certain that it's almost for sure a lie.
Yeah, I think you could see her face change when the algorithm said that to her. And I think she realized that that's her strength now. Even the algorithm is banking on her being a good liar. And maybe she has some confidence now to lie to it so that she can save her people, because it was definitely a dark episode when they're talking about like, how do we make sure that their son has all these memories and like that he'll remember us? Like the vitamin D plus is that strong that they won't even realize that they're losing their memories to a point that they won't even recognize their family. And we've seen it in small doses, like with Juliette and her amnesia right now, but for a whole silo, like 10,000 people.
Yeah, and I think for Camille, it was this realization that she was kind of played a little bit to think that she earned this position, and that it was actually, no, they're kind of pragmatically judging you based off of what they need to this one ability she has to be able to lie to people. Okay, well, if you're expecting me to lie to everyone, how much are you lying to me? And I think that was kind of where she realized this isn't maybe our friend, or this isn't somebody that I can just blindly trust this algorithm to have our best interest. We need to be thinking on our own as well. So I definitely think at the end, she sounded very assured that she was going to, take care of the Juliette problem and whatnot. But I think it's pretty clear that there are some cracks in that belief, and she's going to move forward, prioritizing her family.
And I hope that they do go back and kind of explain the switch up, because in the previous season, we saw Robert and the son being told by the algorithm that they had to go outside. And then all of a sudden, they have zero communication with the algorithm. So definitely excited to see this new Camille and what she can do. But I'm curious how we got there. Like, what transpired off screen that now she's the one that's only in the communication. I know they said it's because she's a good liar, but what did they see in Robert, and how come they're letting him stay around in the meantime?
And how much does she actually know? So let's talk about that Grey Goo mission, because in the before times, I guess we can call it, Daniel and Helen are on a hunt for whatever information they can find out about the mission that hospitalized Daniel's sister.
And it was very cool that they actually had a way to track down the recording. And it was so disturbing that even their drive home, they were quiet. Like whatever they heard was just shook them to their core. But what I found interesting with that whole scene was that we learned something about the tech. And we had asked this question before, like, why is the algorithm so advanced in tech? And then the relics that everybody's cherishing in the silo are so outdated, like analog tech. And we heard that conversation in this episode.
Yeah, so Helen has a contact that she says is from the dark web, essentially, who heard the recording of the mission, about 20 seconds of it, and he recorded it on analog. And he made it a point of saying it got wiped from everything on the internet. And this is essentially the only recording left behind because it's analog. So I think it's interesting that they made that point of specifying how important analog is. Fast forward, most of the silo runs pretty analog, and all of the relics that are illegal are very old and analog looking. So is it because they fear that information is hidden on some of these old analog things? Because if we remember, one of the legal relics is just a watch.
Yeah.
That we know wouldn't hold any information in. So are they trying to gather something up that they don't want getting out?
Yeah. That's what it seems like, right? And like, it also brings the thought to my mind that what if the war and like the whole reason that they're down there is because that advanced tech that we see in the algorithm got out of control, and now it's almost like a battle between old versus new.
And it's possible that the new tech in a sense won because the algorithm looks so advanced and new. And they've been doing this kind of, these differences because we see Helen on a pretty modern computer as well in the modern times. So even though they don't give us specific dates, you can tell that they're using really outdated tech. So is it because the rebellion will always use analog tech in order to hide from the algorithm, which is hearing all and seeing all and
recording all?
So I definitely think that's interesting. I also find it interesting that we kind of see Helen losing more attachments to the real world. She gets fired from her, albeit not focused job, the job she didn't necessarily care about. But I do wonder if we're going to see her, maybe be taken care of by the government, because we got a lot of clues again from what that dark web visit that they're being watched.
Yeah.
And we got confirmation that Daniel has that watch. We saw a nice little close-up of the watch this episode, so it's definitely clear that potentially he makes it down there. But maybe Helen.
Yeah. So then our bet is that Daniel's the one who brings in the watch that Juliette wears and that's been passed down through her family. And he's also the one that brings in the Pez dispenser that he originally gave to Helen.
And that Helen gets taken care of either because she gets too close to the information or because she's trying to expose it to the public. Because she is a reporter who, once you get a story, the whole point is to tell it, right? Yeah. So does that mean that Daniel falls in line and that's why he's allowed to survive? I think it's one of the most interesting parts of this season so far has been that before time part, because there's just so many questions. Even the recording that they had, they're like, you shouldn't listen to this because it's your sister. What's on it?
Yeah.
What's on it?
I hope we get to hear a little bit about it.
Yeah, and you had the thought that it most likely is revealing that it was on purpose, or that it was a test of some kind, that, maybe it was a plant and they ran the mission knowing that they wanted to test what the tech could do, not on American soil or American airspace.
Yeah. And then have a scapegoat in case something went wrong.
Of another country, exactly. So maybe it's that confirmation of that. Yeah. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how all of that comes to a head and leads to them going into the silo, but also who they choose to put into the silo or into each of the 50 silos and how they break that down. We've seen a lot of kind of that analysis of, these people can have children, but these ones can't, or these decisions being made. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how they decided, what silo did Daniel go into? Was it 18 or, and why, and how they chose these people into which places.
So that brings us to our overall feelings of the episode. And it was episode 3. Like, typically in a show, episode 3 is a filler episode. I would say it gave us more than just a filler.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. You can tell they're setting up for the big reveals or the big finale. That's why we haven't heard the recording. We just got a peek at Lukas Kyle. I think the main gripe with this episode is that they had to set up a lot of roadblocks just to knock them down.
Yeah. And I think as viewers, it was kind of like, okay, like, you're not convincing me on this. Like, I know Lukas Kyle isn't dead.
Exactly.
Like, who are we doing this for? It's not us.
And I think the Shirley and Juliette relationship is one that is kind of bothering me this season. So Shirley, you're upset that she forgot who you were, but she has no control over that. So I think this kind of separation of her not being able to interact with Juliette feels forced in a lot of ways, and not like an issue that we need. The amnesia overall feels like something we didn't need. We're essentially spending half the season already getting to exactly where we were at the end of season 2.
And I would have, if we were going to do this whole memory thing, because I understand it ties into the bigger story, I would have almost loved to see the opposite. Like Juliette coming back to the silo and everybody forgot about her.
Yeah, I think that would have been, and her trying to make everyone believe the truth. I think that would have been a really interesting alternative. But overall, I do think the season's giving us a lot. It's not boring. Its strongest parts are the before times.
Yeah.
But I am excited to see Solo. I need to see him soon.
Yeah.
And to kind of see, are the Sims family going to flip? And what's Lukas Kyle planning? There's a lot of questions being asked. I'm just excited and maybe a little impatient for them to get answered. So now we want to hear from you. What's your biggest theory after episode 3? Is Sims working for the algorithm, against it, or just for herself? And what do you think Lukas is really going to find in the mines? Drop your theories in the comments because we read every one of them. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our episode 4 recap. Until next time, we'll see you back in the silo.
Talk to you soon. Bye.